Redditor Ask Me Anything. I'm Michael Franzese, a former maid boss in the Colombo crime family starting in the early 80s. Ask me anything. I'll begin answering questions at 2 p.m. Eastern. Hi Redditors, I'm Michael Franzese. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm the son of one of the most feared Mafia bosses to ever walk the streets of New York. He was an enforcer known to be cold-blooded and extremely deadly. I followed in my dad's footsteps and took on the mob life. As a maid member I made money for the mob, tons of money. A quote about me from Life magazine. From the time he took a blood oath that bound him body and soul to New York's Colombo crime family, Franzese became a force to be reckoned with in organized crime. Named one of the biggest money makers in the mob since Al Capone by Vanity Fair, he quickly crept into the upper echelon of Mafia authority in this country. At age 35, he was the youngest mobster listed on Fortune magazine's survey of the 50 most powerful and wealthy Mafia bosses in America. Franzese hit the list at number 18, only 5 spots behind the infamous John Gotti. At the height of his operation, federal authorities claim Franzese generated close to $1 billion a year in a gas tax scheme he masterminded. Then, defying common sense and the covenant that bound him to the Colombo family, Michael did the unthinkable. He quit the mob. There's an old saying that the only way to leave the Mafia is in a coffin. Michael Franzese was willing to take that risk. He will not betray his former crime associates and then disappear into the witness protection program. If he holds to what he has promised, it will mark the first time that a high-ranking member of the Mafia will publicly walk away from his past and live. That was then. A young Christian woman I met on the set of a movie changed my life and caused a transformation in me that only God could have engineered. My story is currently featured on 3 cable networks: Discovery, the History Channel and National Geographic Network, and a movie about my life will be released in theaters in the fall. A documentary I'm featured, entitled Impact, delivers a strong message to at-risk youth and has won Best Documentary Awards in 2013 at 2 major film festivals. I know the mob life as well, or better than most. I'm also a person of strong faith. I'm ready to answer all your questions. Ask me anything you like. No bounds, no limits. I have been asked everything under the sun. If I choose not to answer, I know how to take the fifth. I've done that many times in my former mob life, but I assure you I won't this time. So join me today and fire away. What was it like walking away from the Mafia? Was it accepted, or were you threatened or hounded in any way? Also, what were the actual logistics of your gas tax scam? How were neither the eyes or any federal agency not able to successfully audit you? I struggled mightily for years. After walking away, my father disowned me, the family put a hit on me, the feds tried to make me a witness, lots of pressure, very tough for me personally. Even though I didn't hurt anyone, I felt like I betrayed my oath and it really troubled me. Only God and time were able to fix that. Gas tax scheme was complicated, but we were way ahead of the authorities. They could not figure out what we were doing. If my partner didn't turn snitch, they would never figured out the scam. Any fears about your safety today? I can't go back to Brooklyn to live, or in New York in general, wouldn't last, but I don't live in fear. I'm a person of strong faith now. God has had my back. Remember, I'm the only made man, a Kaporajime, that I know of who has walked away from the life publicly, not entered a witness protection program, and lived. It's a God thing, my friend, not coincidence. If you listen closely, you can hear the sound of thousands of Redditors' brains imploding. Any stories of interaction with other organized crime families, such as Russian mob, Yakuza, outlaw bike clubs, Mexican prison gangs, etc. A million. Spent 20 years in the life. Organized the Russian mob from Brighton Beach in the gas business. Best partners I ever had. I taught them how to defraud the government out of hundreds of millions of dollars of tax money back then. They now are deep into Medicare fraud, setting up fraudulent medical clinics all over the country. Would take hours to tell you all the stories. Take care. What is the scariest situation you have been in? Walked into a room one night and thought I was going to get killed. I was called in by my boss over money I generated in the gas business. That's how it goes. You walk in and never walk out when you are in real trouble. I was in the right, proved it, and here I am. But, brother, my heart was pounding, knees weak. Still don't know why I went. I guess just a product of my life back then. How nice is your mom's cooking? She make good spaghetti? My mom and grandmother were the best. Grandma's meatballs cannot be duplicated, and mom could whip up a delicious meal in minutes. Miss them both, but my wife is a great cook, blessed. I see this question asked all the time, but never to a legitimate former Mafia boss. How accurate are most mob movies / television shows? If you could recommend one to watch for authenticity, which would it be? Most authentic, Goodfellas and Donnie Brasco. They mention my name in Goodfellas. The bar scene. I knew those guys very well. My era saved Henry Hill's life 2x. I knew Paul Verio and Jimmy Burke well, also, and Left Guns Ruggiero was a good friend. Those two are the most accurate depiction of that part of the life. Getting affirmation that Goodfellas is the truest mob movie from a real life mob boss. This is now my favorite. Ask me anything. Thank you. Stay in touch. How can I tell if the steakhouse across the street from me is a mob joint? Are there any telltale signs? It supposedly was a hot spot in the 80s and is still rumored to be. Easy, who hangs out there? Mob guys like to eat where they are comfortable with ownership and the clientele, and of course, the food has to be good. How old were you when you first realized something was different about your family, and what made you realize it? Very young. My dad was super high profile, like the John Gotti of his day. Law enforcement always after him and sitting outside my house. Many incidents with them, didn't like them very much. When I was a kid, got into fights in school when kids made remarks, but I loved my dad, made me tougher. I'm aware that you spent approximately 3.5 years in prison. How were you treated by the other inmates that were aware of your past? I spent almost 8 years in prison, 5 years, then 3 on a parole violation. I had a lot of publicity, I had a pedigree going in, I was treated well, with respect, because I treated other inmates well. Respect is a big thing in prison. FYI, both John Gotti and Carmine Pacifico, my former boss, were both smacked around in prison. Guys doing life without parole. Don't care who you are, if you disrespect them, they have nothing to lose. Didn't hurt that Fortune magazine named me as one of the 50 most powerful mob bosses in the US. 1. Did you, or other maid members, get an actual salary, or did you just have access to any money you needed? 2. If you did get salary, was it based on what you brought in, and how much was your salary? 3. Do you have a relationship with your father? 4. How thin can you cut your garlic? No salary you earned for yourself, unless you were the boss. Most goozy were not good earners, trust me. Yes, he's 96 years old and still in prison. Very thin. We mob guys are experts at cutting garlic. We all know movies like The Godfather and shows like Boardwalk Empire are a romanticized version of the golden age of the Mafia. The Sopranos, on the other hand, has been praised as being a very authentic mob show. My question: how accurately did The Sopranos portray the inner workings of the mob? The best thing about The Sopranos was how he interacted with his family. Mob guys also had family issues. The business stuff was not realistic, made them look incompetent. Some guys were, but others were pretty darn smart. It seems that a lot of families have been destroyed by all of the bloodshed and corruption that Mafia groups like the Colombo family have perpetrated over the years, yet mobsters are generally romanticized in film and on TV. Do you agree that this is how these groups are generally portrayed? Do you think that this is harmful? What is your take on this with your new outlook on life? The Godfather did more to raise the profile of the mob than any other movie. Yes, it's harmful. The life should not be glamorized. Why? It's an evil life. Not saying the men are evil. I was one of them that happened to be blessed. The life is evil because people die. Families get destroyed because of a lifestyle. I lived it, I know. How does the mob or other organized crime compare today with your day? Is it worse? Better? More or less brutal? My day was pretty much towards the end of the golden age of the mob that began in the late 40s. Different today. I wouldn't want to be a part of it. We had some integrity about us, respect and honor did mean something with the old timers. Today, the Russians have gotten pretty violent at times, but it's all not what it was. What is the most unrealistic part about the Mafia as portrayed in television and movies? Really depends on the movie you're talking about. Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco, realistic. The Sopranos? If a mob boss was ever visiting a psychiatrist, he would be in the trunk of a car by the end of the week, along with the psychiatrist. But the family interaction was fairly legit. How often have you encountered corrupt cops/government officials? Has any nationally known incident ever been influenced by this? Quite often there are people to everyone is capable of being corrupted, regardless of your career, but I have met many real good honest ones also. What timing? I just watched that program about the 10 commandments of the Mafia, and now here you are. 1. Where did you get the idea for the gas station scheme? And since it was getting so big, did you have any sort of an exit strategy in case the authorities got too close? Or would you just keep running the scam until you went down with the ship? 2. Who was the scariest person you ever encountered, and what made them particularly frightening? Gas tax scheme was 1 in a million, so much money better than drugs and a lot less ugly. A guy in the biz came to me when some other mob guys tried to shake him down and move in on his business. I chased the guys away, and the two of us devised this scheme to defraud the government out of the tax money on every gallon of gas at its height. We sold 500 million gallons of gas a month and kept 30 cents a gallon of the tax money. Do the math, lots of money. My dad was scary, saw him go off on people scare. Because he was no BS, he would do exactly what he said, no fear in him.
3, 2, 1.